Your birthday is coming up. Someone asks what you're going to do to celebrate, and you reply with something that, for some reason, surprises everyone. Nothing. It's just another day. And suddenly, something curious happens. People start looking at you differently. Your friends think you're being negative. Your family assumes you're in a bad mood. And society seems to believe that if there isn't a cake, candles, and smiling photos, then something must be wrong with you. But what if nothing is wrong? What if the fact that you don't care about your birthday says something very interesting about how your mind works? Psychologists have studied this behavior and discovered something unexpected. People who don't care about their birthdays are not all the same. In fact, they usually fall into three very different psychological categories. Some learn not to expect anything. Others simply have brains that work differently. And a small group has reached a conclusion that many people find difficult to accept. Let's start with the first group, because they almost never talk about it. There are people who stopped celebrating their birthdays not because they wanted to, but because they learned not to expect anything. In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman discovered a phenomenon he called learned helplessness. When someone experiences repeated disappointments without being able to change the outcome, the brain begins to do something very interesting. It stops trying, not because the person is weak, but because the brain is trying to protect them. Birthdays can easily become a kind of emotional experiment. As children, we expect very specific things. We expect people to remember. We expect to feel special. We expect the day to be different. But when those expectations are broken again and again, the brain starts adjusting its predictions. This is where another fascinating discovery from neuroscience comes in. Researchers such as Wolfram Schultz demonstrated that dopamine doesn't respond only to rewards, it responds to the difference between what you expected and what actually happened. If you expect something good and it happens, dopamine rises. But if you expect something and it doesn't happen, the drop can be even stronger. So over time, the brain learns something very simple. It's safer not to expect anything. And when someone says, "It's just another day," sometimes it's not indifference. It's a form of protection, a kind of emotional armor built little by little over the years. But here's something interesting. Not everyone who ignores their birthday does so because of past wounds. There is another completely different group. Some people genuinely don't even remember their birthdays. Not because they're sad. Not because they're avoiding something. Their minds are simply occupied with other things. Psychologists call this time blindness. It's common among people who are deeply focused on projects, work, ideas, or long-term goals. When your mind is constantly busy solving problems, creating things, or moving toward objectives, dates begin to lose importance. Days blend together. Weeks pass quickly. The calendar no longer feels like a clear structure. And some events end up filed away by the brain under the category of not urgent. It's the same place where that dentist appointment you've postponed 3 times lives, or that endless to-do list that never seems to get finished. This isn't a lack of self-love. It's simply a mind occupied with too many things at once. But there's a third group, and from a psychological perspective, this one may be the most interesting. These people don't forget their birthdays. They don't ignore them because of pain. They simply don't need them. They've looked at the entire birthday ritual, the candles, the congratulations, the celebrations, and arrived at a very simple conclusion. They don't need it to feel good about themselves. Psychology has an explanation for this. Researchers Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, creators of self-determination theory, spent decades studying what truly makes people happy. They found something fascinating. People with the highest levels of psychological well-being rely less on external events to feel good about themselves. Their sense of self-worth comes from within. Not from a specific date. Not from a celebration. And not from 30 people singing an awkward birthday song in a restaurant. These individuals understood something that researcher Philip Brickman called the hedonic treadmill. The human tendency to constantly chase the next special moment, the next achievement, the next celebration, the next peak of happiness. But those peaks rarely last. So some people simply step off the treadmill. They don't wait for one special day each year to feel important. They've learned how to feel complete on an ordinary Tuesday. And interestingly, that can make other people uncomfortable. Because it challenges a very common belief. The idea that everyone should want the same things. That everyone needs attention. That everyone wants to celebrate. But that's not true. Some people have already answered that question for themselves. Not everyone who avoids their birthday does so from a healthy place. Some do it for a very different reason. Imagine this. You're 8 years old. It's your birthday. You've been waiting for this day for weeks. You've told everyone about it. In your mind, you've imagined balloons, gifts, and people gathering together. Then the day arrives. And everything feels much smaller than you expected. Maybe someone important didn't show up. Maybe someone forgot to wish you a happy birthday. Maybe nobody seemed nearly as excited as you were. And something changes inside you. You don't make a scene. You don't say anything. But you begin lowering your expectations. The next year, you expect a little less. And the year after that, even less. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University discovered something known as the anniversary effect. Our brains don't just remember certain dates. They also relive the emotions connected to those dates, even years later. That 8-year-old child is still there inside you. But there's another fascinating phenomenon. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker from the University of Michigan studied something called contingencies of self-worth. She discovered that some people avoid situations that might confirm their fears about themselves. In other words, some people stop celebrating their birthdays not because they don't need to, but because they're afraid that if they celebrate and things don't go perfectly, it will confirm something painful they already believe. So they prefer not to try. It's a form of self-protection. And the difference between these two situations is important. There's a huge difference between not needing a celebration and wanting one but not allowing yourself to desire it. If you're someone who doesn't care about your birthday, ask yourself one question with complete honesty. Is it freedom? Or is it fear? Only you know the answer. But the very fact that you're reflecting on it already says a lot. Because perhaps we've spent years misunderstanding what it really means to love ourselves. We've been taught that celebrating means you value yourself. That throwing a party means you appreciate your life. But maybe real self-love doesn't always look like a party. Maybe sometimes it looks like something much quieter. Accepting that one more day on the calendar is enough. Perhaps someone watching this video spent their last birthday completely alone and still felt perfectly at peace. If that's you, you're not broken. You simply belong to a group of people who don't need permission to feel whole. And if this video appeared on your screen today, maybe it wasn't a coincidence. If you've ever spent a birthday without celebrating it and felt completely fine, feel free to leave a quiet comment. And if you're interested in topics related to human psychology, subscribe. Because the next video might explain something else about yourself that you haven't discovered yet.